Welcome, subscribers. Warm welcome. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for being here. We are continuing our fascinating discussion with Marcus Allen. And of course, we've been talking about some brief overview of his talk that he'll be doing at the Beyond Knowledge conference about the alleged moon landings, and also, of course, about the other very fascinating subject about the technology, if you will, of the Egyptians and what really or potentially has been going on there. And what I think we should do in this second segment here is to change gears a little bit and actually talk about the crystal skulls, another fascinating area that Marcus has been looking into. And I guess that we could also take the angle on this of the fact that a new Indiana Jones film is about to be released. It's in the making, and it's going to be about the crystal skulls, the subtitle about the crystal skulls, and potentially what this could lead to is more interest from the mainstream, I guess, in regards to this area of the crystal skulls. A very, very fascinating topic that I know that Marcus has been researching. And Marcus, what do you think about this angle with the Indiana Jones film? Always when things like this come up in the mainstream, we have seen it before with the previous Indiana Jones films, but even the fact of, the Da Vinci Code, as soon as these subjects reach the mainstream, they kind of explode. Do you think a similar thing is going to happen in regards to the crystal skulls here?
I think it may well do, and thank you very much for inviting me. I think the crystal skulls are a fascinating subject, and as you say, they enter the mainstream. Indiana Jones movies are definitely mainstream in terms of film production. What is fascinating about Hollywood films is quite often they will pick up on ideas that are circulating, shall we say, below the surface, out of the mainstream view. Hollywood will pick up on it, or their scriptwriters will pick up on it, and develop an idea that will translate into a good movie. A previous good example of this was Independence Day, about E.T. and invasion of the Earth by extraterrestrials, and how Will Smith managed to beat them all off. But the idea was probably circulating for many years beforehand that something like this could happen. To translate into a mainstream film is a brilliant idea and a very good way of getting information out. The crystal skulls, people are aware of the concept of a crystal skull. They may not have ever seen one, because there are very few really good ones. I would say, in my experience, there are only two crystal skulls which I consider to be a magnificent artifact. One is in the British Museum in London, at the Museum of Mankind, which is near Piccadilly in London, and that has been on display, to my knowledge, for many years. It's a life-size skull, human skull, made out of one piece of crystal. And probably the best one of them all, the best crystal skull, is known as the Mitchell-Hedges skull, which was discovered or rediscovered in Yucatan by Mitchell-Hedges. He was an explorer, and he passed the skull on to his daughter, Anna Mitchell-Hedges, who recently died, aged 94. The skull has now been transferred to what are called guardians. They are people who look after it. It's a very, very, what I would say is priceless in terms of value, because the workmanship that has gone into it is quite extraordinary. Again, the Mitchell-Hedges skull is a life-size human skull. This one has a detachable jawbone, which again is made out of the same piece of crystal. Now, crystal, as anybody knows, is a hard material to work with. It's very brittle. It's beautiful when it's worked really well, and you can normally produce small artifacts from it, or just have crystal seeds, I would say. Crystals grow in hexagonal shapes,
right.
Sort of stick-like shapes, They also grow in volcanic material. You've probably seen a crystal that has been cut in half. Outside it looks like a piece of rock, and inside it's got these incredible crystals. But the crystal skull is made of a single piece of crystal. They're very, very rare.
Mm.
A few years ago, some research was done into, well, is there any evidence of we say, modern manufacture? Are these not ancient at all, but are they something which has been made recently? Because it is known that in Germany there was a considerable industry making artifacts out of crystal.
Mm-hmm.
When these skulls were examined, the British Museum skull was examined. Interestingly enough, the Mitchell-Hedges skull has never been examined. Anna Mitchell-Hedges refused permission for it to be examined.
Okay.
And there's no evidence of any grinding wheels, which is what you would expect to see. It appears to have been polished using grit of some sort. But the surface of the skull, this is the British Museum skull, which was examined in detail, has just not been really identified. Certainly the manufacturer has not been identified. Now, I should correct something. When I say that Mitchell-Hedges skull was not examined, it was examined about 20 years ago, and some fairly strange properties were discovered on it, that shining a light underneath the skull reflected subsequently through the eye sockets. So it would appear that it was alive. Now, it may have been used, as I say, it was discovered in Yucatan. It may have been used during certain temple events to indicate that the gods were speaking. That's a possibility. It's not been demonstrated that was what it was used.
Right.
People do make guesses at these things.
Of course.
But one of the other legends of the crystal skull is that there are 13 of them of the same quality and standard as the Mitchell-Hedges skull.
Yeah.
And that when all these skulls are brought together in one place, it will bring about a transformation of humanity. The implication of that is that the skulls were originally deposited in various geographic locations on planet Earth by a previous race of which we know little. They are quite often referred to as Atlantis or the Atlanteans. It could even have been the earlier race of the Muria, which is in the Pacific.
Right.
But there is much about the ancient history of Earth which has been lost. Now, the crystal skull, because it is indestructible unless physically destroyed, it won't rot, it won't deteriorate, as any rock will just maintain its position unless physically altered. The crystal skulls may be thousands of years old. We don't know. They may be a few hundred years old. We don't know. But now that the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is due to be released, I believe, at the end of May, the interest in the subject is going to be extraordinary because they are such extraordinary objects. I don't know the story of the film because that has not been released. George Lucas is the producer, Steven Spielberg is the director. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones, as usual. Very little details have been released about it, but it is almost certain to generate the type of interest in an esoteric subject that, as you said earlier, the Da Vinci Code did for early Christianity.
Yeah.
And many people have a fascination with our past. Now, that is in itself a fascinating area. Why do we have this extraordinary interest? There's no way that a book like the Da Vinci Code, which is in effect a thriller, it was a standard thriller-type book, but it introduced concepts and subjects that people were familiar with but unaware of the detail. And the idea that Christ survived the crucifixion, he was married Mary Magdalene. He had children. He had 3, in fact. He had a daughter first. Her name was Tamsin. His first son was named Jesus, which is a Davidic tradition, and his second son was named Joseph.
Mm.
This is all easily researched. People are not aware of it, and so when it was introduced in the form of a popular thriller, people sort of, a light switched on and said, goodness me, I knew that, but nobody's ever said it before.
Mm.
And so you get this wave of interest in subjects such as Christianity, which affects a large proportion of the world's population.
Indeed.
The crystal skull isn't in the same league in terms of interest. We're not as familiar with it, but I think we may well become familiar with it fairly soon.
Now, you mentioned that there were 13 alleged, and then that the possibility of bringing these together could either signal something or even make something happen. Are there 13 known at this point, or do you know how many has been found and are known?
I don't know how many have been found in total. There are many crystal skulls. There are people who own crystal skulls privately. They're not usually as dramatically large or as impressive as the Michel Hedges skull. There are rumors that there are other skulls around, but I only say only rumors, and they may be incorrect. But there have been discoveries of artifacts which are they're known in the business as UPARTs, out-of-place artifacts.
There you go, yeah.
So something has been discovered. It shouldn't be where it is. It's not something that can be explained easily. I'm thinking one good example of an out-of-place artifact is the Antikythera compass.
Right.
Discovered on the seabed in the Aegean, I believe it was, in the Mediterranean. It was a rock-encrusted gear wheel. It's now been examined in considerable detail, and it appears to be a form of a planetarium or a navigational device, but it came out of a ship which was known to have been wrecked in about 100 BC. It shouldn't have been where it was, because at that time it was assumed that nobody could make gears as accurately as were evident in this piece. It is now in the museum in Greece. Another out-of-place artifact is the Baghdad battery,
right.
so called because that's where it was found.
Yeah.
It can produce electricity. Another one, obviously, is the Great Pyramid. It shouldn't be there. And another one is the moon. That shouldn't be there either. Far too big.
Right.
Far too close. But that's a subject for another discussion.
Well, I mean, but that is actually an interesting point, though. I mean, in regards to, because previously you said, why the fascination of these kinds of hidden subjects or esoteric, mysterious mysteries, as it were, but it also connects, I guess, with the idea that this is almost like a hunt for our lost memory of basically of who we are, where we come from, and what we're doing here. This is we're trying to backtrack and figure out what the heck has happened, because it feels like culturally and consciously we don't have an idea or concept of what the heck has been going on in the past. We've lost the connection with it, and somewhere this is still, I think, a kind of memory that is in some way lurking either in the back of our minds or in the collective unconscious, if you will, that is kind of also at the same time trying to communicate to us or give us hints or ideas, and when we stumble upon some of these things, okay,